My wife's will had a missing page. When I found it, everything made sense. The lawyer's office smelled like lemon polish and old paper. I sat across from Martin Schaefer, who had known Claire longer than I had, and watched him slide the stapled document toward me with fingers that trembled slightly. The will was 12 pages, he said, but when I counted the page numbers in the bottom corners, they jumped from 7 to 9. I looked up. Martin was already gathering his briefcase, eyes fixed on the brass clasp. "Give me a call if you have questions," he said. I held the will flat against the table. "There's a page missing. Everything essential is there," he stood. "Estate's straightforward. House goes to you. Savings split between you and Hannah. Life insurance already processed." I didn't move. Martin's hand was on the door. I said his name once, flat and clear, and he stopped. His back stayed to me for 3 long seconds. Then he turned, and I saw something I'd never seen in 30 years of knowing him. Fear. "She made me promise," he said. The will sat on my kitchen table for 2 days. I didn't open it. I made coffee in the mornings, heard Claire's voice reminding me to use the blue mug because the handle on the white one was cracked, and I'd reach for the blue one before remembering she wasn't there to remind me of anything anymore. The house had a quality of waiting. I'd lived here for 26 years, raised Hannah here, buried 2 dogs in the backyard. But now the walls felt like they were holding their breath. I'm not a man who ignores gaps. I spent 40 years in systems engineering, teaching machines to find flaws humans miss. Pattern recognition, we called it. Anomaly detection. And there was an anomaly in Claire's will, placed there deliberately, protected by a lawyer too ethical to destroy evidence, but too loyal to hand it over. On the 3rd morning, I called Martin's office. His assistant, a young woman with a voice like a recorded message, told me he'd be in court all week. I asked when he'd be back. She said she couldn't share his schedule. I thanked her and hung up, then sat looking at my phone for a long time. Claire died 4 months ago. Stroke, sudden and clean, while I was at the hardware store buying washers for the guest bathroom faucet. I came home and found her in the garden, one hand still holding the pruning shears, her face turned toward the roses she'd been shaping. The EMTs were gentle. They always are when there's no hope and no mess. Hannah flew in from Seattle that night. We planned the funeral together, divided tasks like we were organizing a work project, both of us afraid that if we stopped moving, we'd have to feel the size of what had just collapsed. I knew my wife, or thought I did. She kept lists, labeled boxes, filed receipts in chronological order. She wouldn't have let a page go missing by accident, which meant the page was removed on purpose, and Martin knew about it, and whatever was on. That page was something Claire wanted hidden until I looked hard enough to find it. So I started looking. The filing cabinet in Claire's study was organized with the precision of a library catalog. I went through every folder, tax returns going back 20 years, Hannah's school records, mortgage statements, medical files thick with test results and prescriptions for blood pressure medication that Claire took every morning with a glass of orange juice. I found birthday cards I'd written her, still in their envelopes, bundled with ribbon. I found a receipt from the restaurant where I proposed, folded inside the menu she'd kept. But I found no missing will page, no hidden letters, nothing that explained why Martin Schaefer looked afraid. I tried her laptop next. Claire wasn't careless with passwords. I knew the one she used for banking because she'd asked me to check our account once when she was traveling. I tried it. Wrong. I tried our anniversary, Hannah's birthday, the name of our first dog. All wrong. The laptop locked me out after 6 attempts. Hannah called that evening. We talked about her work, her apartment, the weather in Seattle. She asked if I was eating. I told her I was. She asked if I needed her to come back for a weekend. I told her I was fine. We were both lying. Before she hung up, she said, "Mom would want you to be okay." I said, "I know," but I didn't know. Not anymore. The next day, I drove to the bank. Claire had a safety deposit box there. I'd signed the card years ago, but never used it. The bank manager, a woman with gray streaks in her hair and a name tag that said Denise, walked me down to the vault. She unlocked the box, set it on the table in the little private room, and left me alone. Inside was jewelry. Claire's mother's engagement ring, a pair of pearl earrings, a silver bracelet I'd bought her on our 10th anniversary. Beneath the velvet tray was an envelope, sealed, with my name on it in Claire's handwriting. My hands didn't shake when I picked it up. I thought they might. But my body knew, before my mind did, that whatever was coming wouldn't be a surprise. It would be a confirmation. I didn't open it there. I carried it home, set it on the kitchen table next to the will, and made myself a sandwich I didn't eat. Then I sat down and broke the seal. The letter was dated 2 weeks before Claire died. She started with my name. Not dear or my love, just David, alone on the first line like a summons. She said she'd tried to write this letter a dozen times over 15 years and never finished it. She said she'd thought about telling me in person, but she was a coward and always had been. She said she hoped I'd never find this, but if I did, I deserved to know the truth. The truth was this: Hannah wasn't mine. The affair lasted 4 months. Claire was 32. I was traveling for work, gone 3 weeks out of every 4, designing systems for a client in Minneapolis. Claire was lonely. I knew she was lonely. I told myself I'd make it up to her when the contract ended. The man's name was Eric. He worked at the nursery where Claire bought soil and seedlings. She didn't say much about him. She didn't need to. The details didn't matter. She found out she was pregnant a month after it ended. She thought about telling me. She swore she did. But I came home from Minneapolis talking about how much I'd missed her, how I wanted to start a family, how I could see our whole future laid out like a blueprint. And she made a choice. She let me believe Hannah was mine. "I loved you," she wrote. "I love you still. But I built our life on a lie, and you deserve to know before you spend the rest of yours mourning someone who betrayed you." The letter ended there. No apology, no justification, just the facts, clean and final. I read it twice. Then I folded it, put it back in the envelope, and sat at the table until the light outside turned gray and then dark. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I felt the way I imagine a building feels when the foundation cracks, still standing, but no longer certain why. Hannah called the next morning. I almost didn't answer, but I did. And her voice was the same as it always was, bright and steady, asking if I'd remembered to pay the electric bill because she knew I sometimes forgot. I told her I had. She laughed and said she'd learned her organizational skills from Mom. I agreed. We talked for 10 minutes. When she hung up, I sat holding the phone and thought about the fact that every memory I had of raising her was real. Every scraped knee I bandaged, every school play I attended, every birthday cake we baked together. The love was real. Only the biology was false. But biology mattered. It mattered to inheritance law. It mattered to medical history. And it mattered because Claire had built 26 years of my life on a secret she guarded so carefully she hid it in a will and made her lawyer complicit in the cover-up. I didn't hate her. I wanted to. Hate would have been simpler. Instead, I felt a kind of cold clarity, the same clarity I felt when I found a flaw in a system design and knew exactly how to trace it back to the source. The letter raised questions that needed answers, not emotional questions, but practical ones. Medical history mattered. Hannah had filled out forms over the years, listing family conditions, inherited risks. Every doctor's visit where she checked boxes for my health history was built on false data. I thought about her upcoming physical, the questionnaire she'd have to complete. I thought about the genetic testing companies people used now, sending in saliva samples and discovering relatives they never knew existed. How long before Hannah decided to try one? How long before the truth found its way to her through a database match? I needed to know what else Claire had hidden. The letter was a confession, but confessions are often incomplete. People reveal what they can bear to reveal and bury. The rest, deeper. I started with the photos. Claire had kept albums, dozens of them, arranged on the bookshelf in chronological order. I pulled down the years around Hannah's birth. There were pictures of Claire pregnant, her hand on her belly, smiling at the camera. Pictures of me standing beside her, my arm around her shoulders. Pictures from the hospital, Hannah wrapped in a white blanket, her face red and wrinkled. I was in most of those photos, holding her, looking at her like she was a miracle. I studied Claire's face in every picture, looking for guilt, for hesitation, for some sign that she was living a lie. but she looked happy. Genuinely, completely happy. And that was worse somehow than if she'd looked troubled. It meant she'd made her peace with the deception long before Hannah was born. I moved to the computer again. The laptop was still locked, but Claire had an old desktop in the basement, one she'd used before upgrading. I powered it on. It took 5 minutes to boot, the fan whirring loud in the quiet. No password protection. I opened her email archives. She'd been meticulous about deleting. I scrolled through years of messages, PTA communications, book club reminders, receipts from online orders, nothing personal, nothing that suggested an affair or a secret or a man named Eric. But there was a gap. A 3-month gap in the archived emails, right around the time Hannah would have been conceived. The folders jumped from February to June with nothing in between. I checked the trash folder. Empty. The deleted items. Empty. Claire had scrubbed those months clean. But I knew something about computers that Claire hadn't. Deleted doesn't always mean gone. I downloaded a recovery program, something I'd used years ago in my consulting work when clients accidentally wiped files. I ran it overnight. In the morning, it had recovered 43 deleted emails from that missing period. Most were mundane, spam, forwards, appointment confirmations. But there were 6 messages from an address I didn't recognize. The name on the account was just initials. E.T. I opened the first one. Saw you at the store today. You look tired. I hope you're taking care of yourself. The second. Thank you for yesterday. I haven't felt that understood in a long time. The third. I know this is complicated. I don't want to make your life harder, but I can't pretend I don't feel what I feel. The messages ended abruptly. The last one, dated late July, said only, I understand. I won't contact you again. Be happy. I sat staring at the screen. The messages were careful, coded, but the intimacy was unmistakable. And the timeline matched. Claire had ended it before she knew she was pregnant, or maybe she'd ended it because she suspected. I called Martin Schaefer. His assistant said he was still unavailable. I said I'd wait. She put me on hold for 6 minutes. Then Martin picked up. David. I found the letter, I said. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. Did you know? She told me when she drafted the will, she wanted to protect you and Hannah. Protect me from what? From this, Martin said. His voice was thick. From what you're feeling right now. Did she tell you about Eric? A pause. Yes. Did she tell you if he knew? She said he knew there was a possibility. She never confirmed it to him. So he's been wondering for 27 years. David. Martin's voice shifted, firmer. What are you planning to do? I'm going to find him, I said. I'm going to ask him directly. And then what? Then I'll decide. I hung up without waiting for a response. For 3 days, I did nothing. I went through the routines. I watered Claire's roses. I sorted mail. I made meals and ate half of them. But underneath the surface, I was building a plan. I needed to know who Eric was. I needed to know if he knew about Hannah. And I needed to know whether Claire had left anything else hidden, any other lies waiting to surface. But first, I needed to understand the will itself. Why hide page 8 specifically? I spread the document on the kitchen table and read it section by section. Page 7 covered the distribution of personal property. Page 9 appointed executors and outlined the trust structure for Hannah's inheritance. Page 8 would have fallen right in the middle between assets and administration. A natural place to hide something that connected the two. I called the probate court and asked for the official filed copy. The clerk said it would take 3 business days. I paid the fee. When the envelope arrived, I opened it at the table. 12 pages, just like Martin's copy. And just like Martin's copy, page 8 was missing, but this copy had a stamp, filed as received, which meant Martin had filed the incomplete version, deliberately. I drove to his office without calling. The receptionist said he was with a client. I sat in the waiting room for 40 minutes. When Martin emerged, he saw me and stopped mid-stride. He said something to the receptionist, then gestured for me to follow him. His office had wood paneling and shelves lined with legal volumes. He closed the door. You can't file an incomplete will, I said. I filed what Claire gave me. You knew it was incomplete. Martin sat behind his desk. Claire removed that page herself. Brought me the edited version 2 days before she died. Said if anything happened to her, this was the version to file. And you didn't question it? Of course I questioned it. She told me the missing page contained a personal message to you. She said you'd either find the information elsewhere or you wouldn't, but either way, it wasn't meant for public record. So you've been waiting for me to figure it out. I've been honoring her wishes. Martin folded his hands. She was my friend, David, for 30 years. When she asked me to do this, she was dying and she knew it. You don't say no to that. I stood. The page said she was giving me a choice. Then make it, Martin said, but make it carefully, because once you tell Hannah, you can't untell her. The nursery was still there. I drove past it twice before I pulled into the parking lot. It was a large place, greenhouse and garden center combined, with rows of plants in plastic pots and bags of mulch stacked on pallets. I walked inside. A teenager at the register asked if I needed help. I said I was looking for Eric. She blinked. We have 3 Erics. One who worked here about 27 years ago, I said. She called over an older man wearing a green apron. He had the kind of face that had seen weather, lined and patient. I repeated the question. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Eric Trammell. He's the owner now. He led me to the back office. Through the window, I could see a man bent over a desk, silver hair, reading glasses perched on his nose. The older man knocked. The silver-haired man looked up. Someone here to see you, the older man said, and left. Eric Trammell stood. He was tall, broad in the shoulders, wearing work boots caked in soil. He smiled, the reflexive smile of someone used to greeting customers. Then he saw my face, and the smile faded. You're David, he said. I nodded. He gestured to a chair. I didn't sit. He stayed standing too. Claire passed, I said. I know. I saw the obituary. He paused. I'm sorry. Did you know about Hannah? His throat moved. I suspected. Suspected or knew? He walked to the window, looked out at the rows of plants. Claire told me she was pregnant. Then she told me not to contact her again. She didn't say the baby was mine, but the timing was obvious. And you just accepted that? What was I supposed to do? He turned. She was married. She loved you. She made her choice. Did you ever try to see Hannah? Once. He said it quietly. She was maybe 7 or 8. I saw Claire at the grocery store with her. I stood in the next aisle and watched them shop. Hannah was laughing about something. Claire was smiling. They looked happy. I left before they saw me. And that was it? That was it. I studied his face. There was no resentment in it, no lingering attachment. Just a kind of resigned sadness, the kind that comes from watching a door close and accepting you're on the wrong side of it. Do you have other children? I asked. No, never married. Why not? He shrugged. Didn't seem fair. I knew I'd always be wondering about Hannah. Didn't seem right to build a life with someone while carrying that. I felt something shift in my chest. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition. He'd been trapped by the same secret that trapped me, just from a different angle. If I told Hannah, I said, would you want to meet her? He looked at me for a long moment. No. Why not? Because she already has a father. And from what Claire told me, he's a good one. I left without shaking his hand. As I walked back through the greenhouse, I passed rows of roses and I thought about Claire kneeling in the garden with her shears, shaping something beautiful while keeping a secret that would outlive her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the emails I'd recovered, the careful language, the way Eric had signed off with, "Be happy." He'd loved her, or thought he did, and then he'd let her go. And Claire had let him go too, but she'd carried the weight of that decision for the rest of her life. I got up and went to Hannah's old room. Claire had kept it mostly the same, posters of bands I didn't recognize, a desk with textbooks still stacked on it from her last year of high school, a bulletin board with photos pinned in overlapping layers. I stood in the doorway and looked at those photos, Hannah at every age, smiling, and in most of them, I was beside her. I thought about genetics, about blood type and bone structure and inherited traits. Hannah had Claire's eyes. Everyone always said so. But she had my stubbornness, my habit of working through problems on paper, my tendency to wake up early and watch the sunrise. Were those things learned or innate? Did it matter? The phone rang. I checked the time, 2 in the morning. The number was Hannah's. "Dad?" Her voice was tight. "What's wrong?" "I just had the weirdest dream about Mom. She was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't hear her." She paused. "I don't know why I'm calling. I just needed to hear your voice." "I'm here," I said. "Are you okay?" "Really? I'm getting there." "I miss her," Hannah said. "I miss her so much." "I know. I do too." We talked for 20 minutes, about nothing important, about her work, about a movie she'd seen, about a restaurant she wanted to take me to next time I visited. When she hung up, I sat on the edge of her bed and felt the full weight of what I was carrying. This wasn't just my secret now. It was a choice that would shape Hannah's understanding of her entire life. And unlike Claire, I didn't have the luxury of hiding it in a will and letting someone else decide when to reveal it. Back home, I returned to the will. This time, I read it with different eyes. The missing page, page 8, fell between the distribution of assets and the appointment of executors. I pulled out the staples and held the pages up to the window light. There were faint indentations on page 7, impressions from writing that had been done on the page above it. I took a pencil and shaded lightly over the indentations. Words appeared, faint but readable. If David is reading this, it means he's found the letter. I leave him the choice. He can tell Hannah the truth, or he can let her believe what she's always believed. Either way, he is her father. Biology is a fact. Fatherhood is a choice. He chose her every day. That matters more than the rest. I read it 3 times. Then I put the will back together and returned it to the drawer. Hannah called that weekend. She was planning a visit. She wanted to go through some of Mom's things, she said. Pick out a few items to keep. I told her that sounded good. She asked if I'd thought about the holidays. I said I hadn't. She said we should do something together, maybe rent a cabin somewhere. I told her I'd think about it. When we hung up, I sat in the living room with the lights off. Hannah would be here in 2 weeks. I could tell her. I could show her the letter, explain the gap in the will, let her decide what to do with the information. Or I could say nothing. Let her keep the version of her life where her mother was faithful and her father was her father, and the foundation was solid all the way down. I thought about the 26 years. The first time Hannah called me Dad. The afternoon I taught her to ride a bike, running beside her with my hand on the seat until she was steady and I let go. The night she called from college, crying because she'd failed an exam, and I told her failure was just data and data could be learned from. I thought about every moment I'd chosen to show up, not because of blood, but because love is a verb and I'd conjugated it every day. Claire had stolen my right to know the truth from the beginning, but she'd given me the chance to choose what to do with it now, and that, I realized, was the only gift she had left to give. The missing page wasn't missing anymore. It was a test and a trust. She'd known I'd find it. She'd counted on the fact that I don't ignore gaps, and she'd left me with the question she couldn't answer herself. What matters more, the truth or the life built on top of it? I made my decision on a Thursday morning. I took the letter from the envelope and fed it into the shredder in Claire's office. I watched the strips fall into the bin. Then, I took the reconstructed will and made a clean copy, page 8 included, with Claire's final message typed in where it belonged. I put the copy in a folder labeled Estate Documents and filed it in the cabinet where Hannah would find it someday, if she ever needed to. When Hannah arrived 2 weeks later, she hugged me in the doorway. She smelled like the lavender soap Claire used to buy. We spent the afternoon sorting through closets. Hannah kept a scarf, a cookbook, a pair of earrings. We laughed over old photos. We didn't talk about the will. We didn't need to. That evening, we sat on the back porch and watched the sun drop behind the trees. Hannah leaned against my shoulder the way she used to when she was small. "You doing okay, Dad?" she asked. "I'm getting there," I said. She nodded. We sat in silence. The roses Claire planted were blooming. I'd kept them watered. I'd keep them watered. Hannah is my daughter. That's not a fact I discovered. It's a fact I built, year by year, choice by choice. Claire knew that. She knew I'd understand, eventually, that the lie she told wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of the one I chose to keep telling. The will is filed. The estate is settled. Martin Schaefer sent a letter confirming everything was in order. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The gap is closed. The foundation is still cracked, but I've learned that cracked foundations can bear weight if you shore them up with care. I think about Claire sometimes, kneeling in the garden, shaping her roses. I think about Eric Trammell, carrying a secret for 27 years. I think about Martin, keeping a promise to a dead woman because loyalty mattered more than comfort. And I think about Hannah, laughing over old photos, unaware that the story she knows is both true and incomplete. I don't regret the choice I made. Some truths are necessary, others are just weapons. Claire trusted me to know the difference. I proved her right. The missing page is found. It says what it always said. Fatherhood is a choice. I made mine a long time ago, and I'd make it again.